Hello and welcome back to Scale Down Customs. This is going to be part 2 of the Polar Lights 4GT, the 2006 model. So in the last video we got everything primed, and as you can see my racing stripe color laid down. So now we need to mask that off, and so then we can go finish painting the body. So for my masking I'm just going to be using some Tamiya 6mm tape, a nice sharp hobby blade, and a straight edge, so that I can cut some nice straight lines for masking. Alright, finally got the stripes on there. Looks pretty straight, so alright, let's go spray some black. Alright, that actually turned out pretty good. I am pretty happy with that. Alright, I'm going to let that dry up and then add a couple of decals on there, and then I think we'll be ready to clear coat that. Alright, the paint's dry enough. I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of decals on there. And just a couple. I'm going to try putting on the black 4GT logos on the side and see if that kind of ghosts in there with the black paint. I wonder how that's going to look. But I do want to try that, so We're going to put those on, and then just the Ford badge on the hood. I got my bucket of warm water. Just a little tip, warm water works a lot better for getting these decals to release. And then I'm going to use just a little bit of microset just to help it kind of stick on there a little bit better. Sometimes just straight water, which you can use, will kind of create a little bit more surface tension. Sometimes it just causes the decal to float a little bit more. Well, you can't really see that unless the light's directly on it, and of course you're seeing the decal film reflecting in the light, but I wonder how that's going to look once it's cleared, but you can't really see it. Anyway, we'll try the other side. Alright, I'm going to put a little bit of microsol on there just to help it it's kind of silvering just a tiny bit because the surface isn't super glossy, isn't super smooth. So I'm going to put just a little bit on here just to maybe soften these decals just a little bit more, and hopefully they'll settle in. I don't want to let that solution sit on the paint for too long because I've had it kind of stain the paint a little bit or discolor the paint where there's kind of drops setting on there and then dries onto it. So just trying to dab off some of that from off of the paint surface. Alright, well, I would have liked for that decal to set down a little bit better than that. The other two look okay. Yeah, that didn't really turn out as good as I was hoping it was going to, but alright, so I've got the decals on, ready to do some clear, but before I put the clear on, I want to make sure there's absolutely zero moisture underneath these decals, because especially if I put it in the dryer with a little tiny bit of heat, sometimes those decals will bubble up underneath that clear. So I want to make sure there's no moisture underneath those decals, and then we'll go put some clear on it and keep going with this build. Alright, so I've let those decals dry for a while. It's still not setting down as much as I'd like it, but we're going to go ahead with this. So I'm going to get, since I've been kind of handling it after I painted it, I just want to make sure that there's absolutely no grease or any contaminants on the surface. So I'm going to wipe that down real quick with some grease and wax remover. Just got this from the auto parts store. So I'm going to wipe that down. And then since that does kind of create a little bit of static electricity, I'm going to wipe it off with my Tamiya anti-static brush just to remove any of that static buildup that may have occurred, and then we'll go spray some 2K clear on this thing. All right, a couple things. I got my camera all set up to spray the clear coat and forgot to hit record. So first thing, I didn't record it, and second thing, that clear coat came out looking absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. The ruby red racing stripes look amazing underneath that clear, but that's not going to work. So I think what happened was my activator is too thick. This is a second bottle. The other bottle I was using was even a little bit thicker than this, so my activator has been setting up. It must have made the clear coat too thick. Anyway, so that's really disappointing after an amazing paint job. All that is coming off. That's going to go in the alcohol bath, and it's going to strip it down to plastic, and I will start over on the paint job. In the meantime, we'll start working on detailing interior pieces and finishing up getting the rest of these parts finished detail painting and assembled. So in the bath, and then we'll work on some other parts while we're waiting for that paint to strip off. All right, so I let it sit in the alcohol bath for a couple hours. After the first 30-40 minutes, I kind of rubbed the first couple coats of paint off, let it sit for another hour or so, and then just kind of rubbed off the rest of the paint residue that was still on there down to the primer. And then I actually left it in the alcohol bath overnight, but it doesn't matter. If it doesn't take it off in the first couple hours, it's probably not going to take it off at all, I've noticed with the alcohol bath. And if you haven't seen my video on how to strip a model car, you can check that out. But anyway, so again, this primer, I let it soak overnight, and this was my Mr. Surface 1000 primer, thinned down half and half with the Mr. Thinner 110. So as you can see, that's a pretty good primer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take back to my 600 grit sanding sponge. I'm going to sand this whole thing down, get it nice and smooth again, reprime, repaint, and I'm not going to show you all that again. But one thing I will say is it is extremely frustrating when you have a setback like that, and I wonder why that is, because I think about it. Like, I've built several model cars. I'm going to build more model cars. I know I can do the paint because I've done it before, but man, it's so frustrating when you come up against something that just sets you back like that, you know. And how is that different than me starting from the beginning anyway? I just was thinking about that as I was stripping this paint off and getting it kind of ready again, because we get to points where we're working on a project and we run up against a bunch of walls and we want to throw the model against the wall and just get rid of it and move on to the next one, maybe. I don't know, but let me know what you guys think about that. Just kind of thinking about building and why we build and the enjoyment of it, and then when we have a setback like this, why it affects us so much. Maybe it's because we've made progress that we then have to rewind and start back over again. Maybe it's that we have to admit that something didn't work, we made a mistake. Just something I've been thinking about as I'm working on my models and starting over on builds as I seem to do quite often. Anyway, so like I said, I'm going to get this thing repainted up. So make sure you stay tuned for the next video. Hopefully this will be back up into the same paint scheme that you saw before with a clear coat that actually works. And then we'll be doing some detail painting, some final assembly, and get this build wrapped up, hopefully. But anyway, that'll do it for now. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.